Did you know that employers with a structured onboarding program are more likely to experience higher rates of employee retention, high performance, and productivity? On this episode, we'll be talking about onboarding, what it means, and what is the benefit to employers and employees. However, it will be on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The Office is brought to you by Renwick & Company Limited, Multi-Graphics powered by Expert Group and the Goddard Catering Group.
Welcome back to The Office. Thanks for staying with us. On the topic of onboarding, I am joined by my co-host and Managing Director of HRWise, Miss Goretti Paul. G.
Hi.
Hello. What is onboarding? What is this fancy topic? Are we going on a plane? What's going on?
No, we're not going on a plane.
Okay.
Onboarding is basically the process of integrating a new employee into the organization. That's basically what it is.
Why is onboarding even necessary? Can't we just, start our first day at our desk and just get everything over with?
Well, that's what most employers do. Hire persons and basically introduce them to everybody and leave them to learn their way through the organization. And from our experience, it's obvious that that does not work. So it is highly recommended that employers have a structured onboarding program that will help the employee, that new employee, transition smoothly into the organization. Because think about it, when an employee comes on board, for most people it's a nerve-wracking experience. I mean, they're coming into a new environment, meeting new people, not sure of the expectations, not sure what the relationships are going to be like. They don't necessarily have a good understanding of the culture of the organization or how things are done. And a structured onboarding program is going to help to, put these fears at rest. Yes. And help them to transition their way through the organization, understand the culture, the values, what are the expectations from a performance perspective, and so much more.
It's very interesting because I can recall a situation, a colleague of mine in Jamaica, she started out in a new position. She was very, very excited. Of course, as you mentioned, nervous. On her first day, and for about a week, she had not a desk, not a computer. No. She wasn't quite sure what to do. And she was very, very frustrated. And unfortunately, she did not stay with that organization for quite for a while.
Well, employers need to realize that the process of onboarding a new employee helps to create that person's perception of your company. So, from the very beginning, if the person is starting off with no desk, no chair, that says something.
It says a lot.
There was no preparation. It's like you didn't know I was coming.
Like, why am I even here?
Yeah, you gave me a contract. I was supposed to start on Monday. I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah, well, if there's a contract.
If they got the contract.
I'm here and you're not ready for me. I mean, that is a valid point. I think we've seen some of that happen. So for some of our clients, we literally have to call and say, ensure that everything is in place. Are we ready? Is the phone working?
Yes.
Has
extension up?
Yeah. Has the desk and chair been placed? Do the other staff know that this person is coming on Monday?
Yes.
Because, sometimes they don't necessarily share that information until you see this strange face appear and then you're introduced and said, this is, the new person joining the team.
And that's quite unfortunate. So employers, pay attention because first impressions really do matter. Isn't that right, G?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I want to just point here that the probation period, during the probation period, typically we focus on the fact that, the employer is assessing the employee to determine suitability.
Yes.
But it's also a time for the employee to assess the employer and determine, do I really want to work here? Can I survive this environment? Is this where I want to be?
And sometimes employers take these things for granted, think, you know what, you need the job, we have one available, so do your very best. But the workforce is changing. And whereas in the past you'd have individuals staying in an organization for 15 and 20 years, that's no longer the case, is it?
Exactly, because we have, the younger generation are not as patient.
No.
And, back then we had a culture of security, you know, but I say now job security.
Yes.
And when people tell me that now, I say to them, there's no such thing anymore. I mean, there's no, the world is changing so much that we see an increase in the number of fixed-term contracts being offered versus, you know, contracts without limit to time, because the reality is you're looking for persons who can meet a particular need during a particular time, and employers are moving away from committing themselves at a very early stage to, you know, a lifetime with somebody who may not necessarily be the right fit.
Yes.
So we have to take these things into consideration and understand that the market, that, you know, the talent pool that we have to choose from now is different.
Yes.
You know?
And onboarding, it's very, very important, because we always talk about it in our training. It's one of the very earliest opportunities to foster engagement. We always talking about strategic alignment, one, and employee engagement. These two things are absolutely important, and onboarding is that first step in establishing this.
And it starts from before the person even joins.
Yes.
So, you know, once the person has been selected, to me that onboarding starts. So, you know, from employment it starts, because some companies, what they're doing now is sending, you know, all the documentation, contract, policies, and all these things to the individual before their first day. So they've had an opportunity to actually read through these documents and familiarize themselves. So on that first day, they're coming in with questions. You save time when you do it that way, because as we know now, you know, usually on that first day, you as the HR manager or the person's manager managing that transition probably have to set the whole day aside to deal with this individual. But if you do some of the things from before they even come, it saves you some time.
And what are some of the essentials for onboarding that we'd want to take into consideration for your onboarding packet?
Well, I think one of the things that's absolutely important is to share the organizational structure, helping the individuals understand what is the company culture, the values, you know, what are the performance expectations, even sitting and going through the job description to ensure that the person understands exactly what is required of them in their role.
Yes.
You know, these are some of the things that we often take for granted, but should spend time on.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We are going to continue the discussion on onboarding, but it will be right after the break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the office. Thanks for staying with us. We've been talking about onboarding and why it's important in our organizations. But who is responsible for this onboarding process? Is it the HR manager, or is it the supervisor? Is it the general manager? Gertie, help me out a little bit here.
Well, I think everybody has a part to play.
Okay.
Now, that's one of the benefits of having a structured program. You would identify the responsibilities, and they would be very clearly defined. Everybody would know what their role is within the entire process. Some companies leave that process up to HR, but what we're seeing now is a change in the trend to involving managers in the process and giving them a bigger role to play, because they are the ones who will be working directly with these employees. So what we see happening now is that companies are, while HR, they would have HR prepare the induction pack or, you know, employee's contract, the job description and all of that. They would hand that pack to the manager, and the manager is the one who would, you know, take that conversation with the employee forward until the point at which they come. So when they come into the organization, they report to their manager and not HR. But that's in cases where HR is functioning as it should, as a strategic partner.
As a strategic partner. Very interesting. We're always preaching that. What is the role of HR in the organization?
Yes.
We're quite a ways to go here in the Caribbean in terms of the evolution of human resource management. And so we still see instances where everyone is sent to HR and the onboarding falls on the shoulders of HR. But generally, when HRWise speaks about human resource management and people management as an extension, we always want to emphasize that relationship that the people manager is supposed to have with their direct reports.
Exactly. Now, what we see happening is, in our old way of doing it, the St. Lucian way, is that HR handles it.
Yes.
And the poor manager is clueless. So they get this new employee joining their team, and they're supposed to now make it work.
This employee that they heard about.
Yes, and in some cases they were not part of the recruitment at all. Yeah. So that's for another show. That's for another show. But you know, we always encourage that direct manager should be involved in the recruitment process, because you see, when you're hiring people, it's not just about ensuring that they have the right skills and experience, but how will they fit into the team?
Yes.
You know,
do they have the personality?
Exactly,
yes,
because in a lot of cases you will find personality clashes leading to people not staying in a role. Or, you know, it's just not working out for various reasons, because it's difficult to communicate based on, you know, clashing personalities.
You know what? I want to pause right here and speak directly to our job searchers, because we've heard this time and time again. I sent in an application, and this, based on the job description, was me. It was me all the way down to a T. Why did I not get that job? And sometimes it's really and truly, how does this person fit in with the team?
Exactly.
So don't feel all the way down you didn't get the job. It's probably for your own good.
Yeah. Because I mean, you will see that in some cases when we hire, we will shortlist candidates. Yes. And we will say, okay, this person is an excellent fit for this client, but not that client.
Yes.
Right?
So quite a lot.
Yeah, so we would say this person is going to be good for this role in this type of environment, but not in that type of environment. So personality plays a big role as well. So sometimes when people call back and ask, can you tell me what it is I did wrong in the interview? Why wasn't I selected? Sometimes it's not that you don't have the skill set. It's just that, you know, your background, your personality may not really match with the environment that we know you're coming into. If you're timid and soft-spoken, and we know
too bold,
and we know you're going to an environment where, boy, if you're too sensitive, you'll not survive. We will not send you there.
Yes,
you know. Absolutely. So all of these things we take into consideration.
But back to onboarding. Generally, we consider the 3-month period, the probationary period, to be that onboarding. We say, all right, that's the de facto onboarding time. But can it be extended, and if so, is there a benefit to it?
Well, I think onboarding can take from anywhere between the 3 months to a year.
Yes.
For it to be done properly.
And why so?
Because it's a continuous learning process for the employee. I mean, think about it. If an organization has been in business for over 20 years, you really feel like in 3 months the employee who has no knowledge of this place is going to cover everything?
Yes, yes.
So we need to allow sufficient time, and it has to be continuous. It requires effective and regular communication, you know, performance management, so really assessing this person and giving them the tools, the knowledge that they need to be successful in their role. Coaching, you know, even mentoring for the organizations who have a mentorship program, assigning that new employee to someone who can teach them some of the things that they need to know to be successful in their role. You know, so all of these things is going to take more than 3 months. The 3 months will go by so quickly.
Yes, and I think of sometimes, let's say we have an organization that's sales driven and you had someone come on in the slower season. Is it really fair to assess their performance to say that they're doing just a good job, and they have not fully experienced that busy season, which might be a little later? Right?
One of the things that I've constantly had to say to persons is we take certain things for granted, and taking that time to sit with a new employee and reviewing their job description is something that doesn't really happen, because we're assuming that if somebody has been in customer service for 10 years or 3 or 5 years, you know, they've met that job requirement. For the position, you were supposed to have 3 years experience in customer service, as an example. You were supposed to have a diploma from SAFA. Okay, you've met that criteria. So they assume that you know exactly what to do, right?
Yes.
You worked as a customer service rep before in a previous organization, so you must know what to do.
Yes.
You know, and that's a mistake that a lot of companies make, because the environment the person was working in perhaps is nothing like yours. The processes that they followed
would be very different.
Nothing like yours. And so you ask them to do something, they will do it the way they know how. You end up getting mad at them or disappointed that they've not done it the way you've done it, but you've not taken the time to show them how you want it done.
Yes,
And that's something that we need to do a little more of.
and pay attention to that. You know what? We've been having a really good time talking about onboarding, but we're coming up on the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the office. Thanks for staying with us. On this episode, we've been talking at length about onboarding, why is it necessary, and who is responsible. Garrity, is there anything else you'd like to add to the topic?
Well, I think two things. In terms of who is responsible, I want to say that I think I said earlier that everybody has a role to play.
Yes.
So we're talking about the GM, the person's direct report, HR, everybody has a role to play. And it is important that we clarify those roles from early. The other thing that I think is absolutely critical in any successful program is training.
Okay.
So it's not just, it is not just, on-the-job training done haphazardly, but having a structured program where the individual gets to understand how each department fits into the other, how, what one department does affects the other, understanding the business holistically, but going a little further and ensuring that they identify suitable training programs for this person to help to build their capacity, and their competency in the role. Because your point is to ensure that you've given the person all the tools, the knowledge, the experience that they need to be successful, right? And you need to look at new hires like an investment in your business. So if you've made an investment in hiring this person, I mean, nobody wants to have to change staff every 3 months. So you have to be prepared to invest the time. And that is why, a lot of companies fail at onboarding, because it is time consuming. It requires time. In a lot of cases, persons expect that, they ask for experience.
Yes.
Everybody wants somebody who has experience. Why?
Because
they don't want to have to be the one to train them.
But you know what? This speaks to a larger issue. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but performance management comes to mind. Because beyond just the 3 months, you need to be providing some level of feedback, in-depth feedback, and you can only provide that with coaching. And a lot of employers, a lot of organizations just rely on the appraisal process, which happens once a year. And if you have a structured onboarding program, we need to do a little bit more than just the appraisal, but that's another topic.
Yeah, that's another topic. The thing about HR is that it's all interrelated.
Yes.
So all the various aspects come together to give you, the ideal employee and the ideal working environment. So it's definitely all related.
Well, you know what? Every client that we've had would have made mention of their good employees and the one or two bad apples. And when you have new recruits, you want to ensure that you foster the right mindset from day one. Now, how does onboarding help to ensure that we steer this new hire on the right path and away from the very helpful bad apples in our organization?
Well, you see, that's where when structure is there, you're taking control. So as the employer, if you have a structured onboarding program, you're controlling that flow, you're controlling the influences to a great extent. I mean, you will always have a few not so good habits being developed, but generally you would be influencing the direction in which you want that new employee to go. What happens when you do not have an onboarding program is you basically leave the employee up to their, on their own to figure things out. And what is likely to happen? They're going to gravitate to the people who are less stuck up, the ones who are easier to talk to, the ones who, speak the language that make you feel comfortable. And usually these are the ones that have some bad habits that we're trying to curb. And what happens is they pass on these bad habits to these new employees.
They try to show them the shortcut, show them the ways, show them who to talk to, and who not to talk to. And
even when you have a mentorship program, as an example, what you will find is that you will select the ideal employees, the top performers, the ones who have leadership qualities, who will pass on some of the right behaviors to serve as mentors. So you wouldn't leave it open to just anybody. So why leave your onboarding open to anybody? Why? You're opening yourself up for more issues down the line.
Yes.
So invest up front, do it right, and save yourself the hassle later down the line.
Foster that positive connection, and of course start to engage them in such a way that they're strategically aligned to the direction of the organization.
Exactly.
Understand what they're doing and why they're doing it is going to be very, very important. Now, we are running out of time, but one more thing that I'd like to talk about is the issue of coaching. Because oftentimes we have this list of things, a checkbox, say, okay, you met this person and that person, and so I've done onboarding.
Right.
But is that sufficient?
No.
To what extent is coaching going to play a role?
Yeah, I mean, onboarding is not about ticking boxes, I can tell you that. I mean, anybody
Did
can
I
have a
give you the
checklist.
key?
Yeah, anybody can have a checklist and say, yes, I did this, that, and that, but it's about the quality. So coaching is absolutely essential. And like you mentioned, performance management, the value of that is so important. The coaching is going to give the opportunity for two-way communication, for growth, development, sharing of information, constructive feedback, you name it. And that is what is going to be required to really help the person's transition and develop and grow into, you know, into their role and into the ideal the ideal employee that you're trying to create.
Yes.
And I highly recommend that all organizations invest the time and resources into ensuring that they have a structured onboarding program. Because remember, it is going to impact on your turnover rate. So you'll have lower turnover, you will have higher employee satisfaction, you will have higher productivity, better performance from your team. You will also have a greater sense of organizational commitment. And these will all augur well. You'll have lower stress levels for your new recruits. You know, and this can only augur well for the performance and success of your individual businesses.
All right. So employers, if you would like to develop an onboarding program and you're not quite sure where to start, of course, you can reach out to us at HRWise. Give us a call at 458-4001. Contact us at Facebook at HRWise INC, Instagram and Twitter. The handle is the same. We hope that you've had a wonderful time on this episode of The Office, where our door is always open. See you next time.